The world held its breath when Princess Catherine, the woman millions had watched evolve from a university student to the future Queen of England, stepped out of her car at the London hospital on that crisp autumn morning. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her cream-colored coat, a gesture so human and vulnerable that it reminded everyone watching that beneath the royal titles and designer clothes lived a woman fighting the most personal battle of her life. What happened next would not only change how the world saw the Princess of Wales, but would also redefine what it means to face adversity with grace while carrying the weight of a nation's hopes on your shoulders. This is the story of courage found in the most unexpected moments, of a princess who discovered that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from hiding our struggles, but from sharing them with the world. Catherine's journey through cancer treatment became more than just a personal health battle. It became a beacon of hope for millions facing their own dark moments, proving that even those who seem to have everything can find themselves fighting for something far more precious than any crown or title, the simple gift of tomorrow. The morning Catherine received the phone call that would change everything started like any other day at Kensington Palace. She was in the sunlit breakfast room, watching George struggle with his mathematics homework while Charlotte practiced piano scales in the adjacent music room. Louis, still in his pajamas, was building an elaborate castle with his wooden blocks on the Persian carpet that had witnessed decades of royal family moments. William had left early for a meeting with environmental ministers about his Earthshot Prize initiative. Before departing, he had kissed Catherine goodbye, his lips lingering on her forehead in that tender way that had become their morning ritual over their 13 years of marriage. Neither of them could have imagined that this simple gesture would soon take on profound meaning as they faced the most challenging period of their lives together. Catherine's phone buzzed against the mahogany table. The caller ID showed Dr. Sarah Morrison, her longtime physician at the London clinic. Catherine had been expecting this call for 3 days now, ever since she had undergone what was supposed to be routine medical tests following some persistent fatigue and unexplained symptoms she had been experiencing for weeks. She stepped away from the children, walking toward the window that overlooked the palace gardens where autumn leaves were painting the landscape in shades of gold and crimson. The irony was not lost on her that nature was displaying its most beautiful colors just as her world was about to shift dramatically. Dr. Morrison's voice was professional but gentle, the tone that medical professionals reserve for delivering news that will forever divide a patient's life into before and after. The words seemed to float in the air around Catherine like autumn leaves falling slowly to the ground. Cancer. Treatment options. Early detection. Prognosis. Hope. Catherine found herself focusing on the mundane details around her as the doctor spoke. The way the morning light created patterns on the antique rug beneath her feet. The distant sound of Charlotte's piano practice, now playing a piece by Chopin that Catherine had learned herself as a child. The smell of fresh coffee still lingering from breakfast. These ordinary moments suddenly felt precious and fragile. When the call ended, Catherine remained standing by the window for several minutes, watching the palace gardeners tend to the rose bushes that would soon enter their winter dormancy. She thought about cycles and seasons, about how nature understood that sometimes things must appear to die in order to be reborn stronger in the spring. The children continued their morning routines, blissfully unaware that their mother's world had just tilted on its axis. Catherine made a conscious decision in that moment that would guide her through the difficult months ahead. She would not allow fear to steal these precious ordinary moments with her family. She would fight not just for her health, but for the right to continue being present for all the small, beautiful details of their lives together. Over the following days, Catherine and William worked together to process the diagnosis and understand their options. They spent long evenings after the children were asleep, sitting in their private sitting room, talking through treatment plans and scheduling concerns. William's engineering mind wanted to organize and solve, while Catherine found herself drawn to research, reading medical journals and patient stories late into the night. The royal household had protocols for many situations, but there was no manual for how the future queen should handle a cancer diagnosis. Catherine and William decided that honesty would be their guiding principle, both with their children and, eventually, with the public, but they would control the timing and the message. They consulted with palace communications experts, medical advisors, and, most importantly, child psychologists about how to explain Catherine's condition to George, Charlotte, and Louis in age-appropriate ways. The conversations with the children were perhaps the most difficult of all. George, at 11, was old enough to understand the seriousness but young enough to be frightened by the unknown. Charlotte, 9, asked practical questions about whether Mummy would lose her hair and if she could help with the medicine. Louis, at 6, mainly wanted to know if this meant fewer bedtime stories. Catherine assured them that she would still be their mother first and foremost, that she would fight with everything she had, and that they would face this challenge as a family. She promised them that honesty would always guide their conversations, that they could ask her anything, and that she would never hide important information from them. The decision about when and how to inform the public weighed heavily on both Catherine and William. They understood that as senior members of the royal family, the British people had a right to know about significant health issues, especially ones that might affect Catherine's public duties. However, they also had a responsibility to their children and to themselves to maintain some privacy during what would inevitably be an intensely personal battle. Catherine began making discreet changes to her schedule, cancelling non-essential engagements while keeping the most important royal duties. Her private secretary worked carefully to reschedule events without raising suspicions, citing seasonal adjustments and family commitments. The few palace staff members who were informed about the situation were sworn to absolute secrecy. During this period of quiet preparation, Catherine found unexpected strength in routine. She continued the school run with the children, maintained her early morning fitness regimen, and kept up with correspondence from her royal patronages. These normal activities became anchors that kept her grounded as she prepared for the storm ahead. She also began reaching out privately to other women who had faced similar diagnoses. Through discreet channels, she connected with cancer survivors from all walks of life, learning about their experiences, their fears, and their victories. These conversations gave her insight into the journey ahead and helped her understand that her platform as Princess of Wales could potentially help millions of other women facing similar battles. The weight of public scrutiny was never far from Catherine's mind. She understood that when her diagnosis became public knowledge, every aspect of her treatment, her appearance, and her emotional state would be analyzed and discussed by media outlets around the world. The thought was both daunting and motivating. If she was going to be watched, she wanted to use that attention purposefully. Catherine spent hours writing in a private journal during this time, documenting not just the medical aspects of her journey, but also her emotional responses, her fears, and her hopes. She wrote about wanting to see George graduate from university, to walk Charlotte down the aisle at her wedding, to teach Louis to drive when he turned 17. These future moments became goals that strengthened her resolve. The preparation period also involved practical considerations that most people facing cancer don't have to worry about. How would her treatment schedule affect state visits? What would happen to the royal patronages that depended on her active involvement? How could they ensure continuity in the children's lives while managing the intense public interest that would follow her announcement? William proved to be her strongest ally during this time, taking on additional responsibilities and rearranging his own schedule to be present for medical appointments and family time. Their partnership, always strong, deepened as they faced this challenge together. They developed a system of silent communication that allowed them to support each other even in public settings. As autumn turned toward winter, Catherine made the difficult decision that it was time to share her diagnosis with the public. She wanted to control the narrative, to speak directly to the people rather than having the news leak through unofficial channels. The announcement would be carefully crafted, honest but hopeful, acknowledging the seriousness of the situation while maintaining the dignity and strength that people expected from their future queen. The final days before going public were filled with a mixture of anxiety and relief. Catherine knew that once the announcement was made, her private battle would become a public journey, but she also understood that this transparency might help countless others facing similar challenges. The little girl who had once dreamed of being a princess could never have imagined that her greatest royal duty would be showing the world how to face adversity with grace and courage. The video announcement was recorded on a Thursday afternoon in the private garden at Windsor Castle. Catherine chose this location deliberately, surrounded by the climbing roses that had been her favorite since she first moved to the royal residence. The natural setting felt authentic and personal, a stark contrast to the formal backdrop that might have been expected for such a significant royal announcement. She wore a simple navy sweater and minimal jewelry, wanting to appear approachable and human rather than distant and regal. The production team was kept deliberately small, consisting only of trusted palace communications staff who had worked with the family for years. Even the camera operator was someone Catherine knew personally, understanding that this moment required absolute discretion and sensitivity. Catherine had spent weeks writing and rewriting her statement, working with communications experts to strike the right balance between transparency and privacy. She wanted to be honest about her diagnosis without frightening people unnecessarily, hopeful about her prognosis without minimizing the seriousness of her condition. Every word was carefully chosen, every pause deliberately placed. The final script was deeply personal, written largely in Catherine's own words. She spoke directly to the camera as if she were talking to a close friend, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was sharing. She explained that she had been diagnosed with cancer, that she was beginning treatment, and that she was facing this challenge with the support of her family and medical team. What made the announcement particularly powerful was Catherine's decision to acknowledge the fear and uncertainty that came with her diagnosis while simultaneously expressing determination and hope. She spoke about the importance of early detection, the advances in cancer treatment, and her commitment to using her platform to support others facing similar battles. The announcement was released simultaneously across all royal social media platforms and sent to major news outlets around the world. Within minutes, it became one of the most shared and discussed royal communications in recent history. The response was immediate and overwhelming, with messages of support pouring in from world leaders, celebrities, medical professionals, and ordinary people whose lives had been touched by cancer. The British public's reaction was particularly moving. People gathered outside Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace, leaving flowers, cards, and personal messages of support. Many shared their own cancer stories, expressing gratitude that Catherine had chosen to be open about her diagnosis. The outpouring of love and support provided unexpected comfort to Catherine and William during what could have been an isolating time. Media coverage of the announcement was extensive but largely respectful. Most major news outlets chose to focus on Catherine's courage in speaking openly about her diagnosis rather than speculating about details she had chosen to keep private. This respectful approach set the tone for how her cancer journey would be covered in the months ahead. The announcement also sparked important conversations about cancer awareness, early detection, and the emotional impact of a cancer diagnosis on families. Medical experts appeared on television programs to discuss advances in cancer treatment, while cancer charities reported significant increases in website visits and phone calls from people seeking information about screening and support services. Catherine's decision to be open about her diagnosis had immediate practical implications for her role as Princess of Wales. Several upcoming royal engagements were postponed or cancelled, while others were transferred to other members of the royal family. The palace communications team worked carefully to manage these changes while maintaining the dignity and continuity that people expected from the royal household. The children's schools were immediately informed about the announcement, with counselors made available to support George, Charlotte, and Louis as their classmates and friends learned about their mother's diagnosis. Catherine and William had prepared the children for the public nature of the announcement, but seeing their private family situation become global news was still an adjustment for all of them. William's response to the announcement was deeply moving. In his first public appearance after Catherine's video was released, he thanked the public for their support and spoke about his admiration for his wife's courage. His obvious emotion and genuine gratitude resonated with people around the world, humanizing the royal family in a way that formal statements never could. The announcement also highlighted the unique challenges faced by public figures dealing with serious illness. While Catherine received an outpouring of support, she also faced intense scrutiny about her appearance, her treatment choices, and her ability to continue her royal duties. This attention, while largely well-intentioned, added an extra layer of pressure to an already difficult situation. Cancer specialists around the world praised Catherine's decision to go public with her diagnosis, noting that her openness would likely encourage other women to seek medical attention for concerning symptoms and to be more diligent about regular health screenings. Several cancer organizations reported immediate increases in appointment bookings and screening requests following her announcement. The announcement also sparked discussions about the role of the royal family in modern society. Many commentators noted that Catherine's willingness to share her vulnerability made the monarchy seem more relatable and relevant to ordinary people facing their own health challenges. Her approach contrasted sharply with the traditional royal preference for privacy around personal matters. International reaction to the announcement was equally supportive. World leaders from across the political spectrum issued statements of support and encouragement. The President of France, the German Chancellor, and leaders from Commonwealth countries all expressed their admiration for Catherine's courage and wished her well in her treatment journey. The announcement video itself became a masterclass in crisis communication. Communication experts analyzed Catherine's delivery, her word choices, and her overall approach, noting how she had successfully balanced transparency with privacy, hope with realism. Her direct, honest approach was praised as a model for how public figures should communicate about serious personal matters. Behind the scenes, the announcement represented months of careful planning and preparation. The palace had developed contingency plans for various scenarios, prepared responses to anticipated questions, and coordinated with medical experts to ensure that all information shared was accurate and helpful. This preparation showed in the smooth execution of the announcement and the respectful media coverage that followed. The days immediately following the announcement were emotionally intense for Catherine and her family. Reading through thousands of supportive messages was both overwhelming and comforting. Many people shared their own cancer stories, creating an unexpected sense of community and connection that helped Catherine feel less alone in her journey. Catherine's patronages also responded supportively to her announcement. Organizations she had worked with for years issued statements of support and understanding, emphasizing that they would adjust their expectations and timelines to accommodate her treatment schedule. This flexibility allowed Catherine to maintain connections with causes she cared about without feeling pressured to meet normal obligations. The announcement marked the beginning of a new chapter in Catherine's royal career, one where her personal experience would inform and enhance her public work in ways she could never have anticipated. Her openness about her cancer diagnosis would go on to influence how the royal family communicated about personal challenges and would establish Catherine as a particularly relatable and human member of the monarchy. As the initial wave of public reaction began to settle, Catherine focused on preparing for the treatment journey ahead, knowing that her next public appearances would be carefully watched by millions of people around the world who were now invested in her recovery and well-being. The first day of Catherine's treatment arrived on a grey London morning in early December. She had chosen to receive her care at the London Clinic, a private hospital known for its discretion and excellent cancer treatment facilities. The decision to use private healthcare, while sometimes controversial for public figures, allowed Catherine to maintain some privacy during her most vulnerable moments while ensuring she received the best possible care. William drove Catherine to the hospital himself, a deliberate choice that spoke to their desire to keep this experience as normal and personal as possible despite the extraordinary circumstances. They had planned the timing carefully, arriving early in the morning when fewer photographers would be present, though they knew that complete privacy was impossible given Catherine's public profile. The treatment team assembled for Catherine was world-class, led by Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, one of Britain's most respected oncologists. Dr. Harrison had extensive experience treating high-profile patients and understood the unique pressures that came with managing Catherine's care. The team also included specialists in nutrition, mental health, and physical therapy, recognizing that cancer treatment affects every aspect of a patient's life. Catherine's treatment plan was comprehensive and personalized, taking into account not only her medical needs but also her responsibilities as a mother and senior royal. The chemotherapy regimen was designed to be as effective as possible while minimizing side effects that might interfere with her ability to care for her children and fulfill essential royal duties. The first treatment session was emotionally challenging for both Catherine and William. Despite all their preparation and research, the reality of sitting in a chemotherapy suite, connected to 4 lines pumping powerful drugs into Catherine's body, was sobering. William stayed with her throughout the entire session, reading aloud from books they both enjoyed and engaging in quiet conversation about the children's school activities and upcoming family plans. Catherine had prepared for the physical side effects of treatment by working with nutritionists and fitness experts to optimize her health before beginning chemotherapy. She had also consulted with stylists about head coverings and wigs, though she ultimately decided that if hair loss occurred, she would be open about it rather than trying to hide the effects of her treatment. The children's reactions to seeing their mother begin treatment were heartbreaking and inspiring in equal measure. George, old enough to understand the seriousness of the situation, appointed himself as Catherine's protector, bringing her tea and extra pillows when she felt tired. Charlotte created artwork specifically designed to cheer up her mother, filling their home with colorful drawings and handwritten notes of encouragement. Louis, in his 6-year-old wisdom, simply ensured that he spent extra time cuddling with Catherine, instinctively understanding that physical affection was healing medicine. Catherine's approach to treatment was characterized by the same methodical preparation that had defined her royal career. She maintained detailed journals documenting her symptoms, side effects, and emotional responses. This record-keeping served both practical purposes, helping her medical team adjust her treatment as needed, and emotional purposes, allowing her to process the complex feelings that came with fighting cancer. The support system around Catherine expanded far beyond her immediate family. Her parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, became regular fixtures at Kensington Palace, helping with childcare and household management when Catherine needed rest. Her siblings, Pippa and James, also stepped up, taking turns staying with the children when William had royal obligations he couldn't postpone. Palace staff, many of whom had worked with Catherine for over a decade, rallied around the family with remarkable dedication and discretion. Her private secretary reorganized Catherine's schedule with military precision, ensuring that essential commitments were maintained while protecting her time for rest and recovery. The security team developed new protocols to ensure Catherine's privacy during medical appointments while maintaining her safety. Catherine's relationship with her medical team became deeply personal and trusting. Dr. Harrison appreciated Catherine's intelligent questions and active participation in treatment decisions, while Catherine valued the doctor's honest, straightforward communication style. They developed a partnership approach to her care that respected Catherine's need to understand every aspect of her treatment while acknowledging her unique circumstances as a public figure. The mental health aspects of cancer treatment proved to be as important as the physical treatment. Catherine worked with a counselor who specialized in helping patients cope with the psychological challenges of cancer diagnosis and treatment. These sessions helped her process fears about mortality, concerns about her children's emotional well-being, and anxiety about how her illness might affect her royal responsibilities. Public interest in Catherine's treatment remained intense but largely supportive. Regular updates about her progress were carefully managed by the palace communications team, providing enough information to satisfy public concern while protecting Catherine's privacy. These updates became a masterclass in managing public interest in private health matters, balancing transparency with dignity. Catherine's treatment schedule was deliberately planned around important family events and royal obligations. She timed her chemotherapy sessions to minimize their impact on the children's school activities and ensured that she would be feeling as well as possible during Christmas celebrations. This scheduling required careful coordination between her medical team, the royal household, and the children's schools. The side effects Catherine experienced were typical for her treatment regimen but no less challenging because they were expected. Fatigue was perhaps the most difficult symptom to manage, as it affected her ability to be present for her children in the way she preferred. Nausea was managed with medication and dietary adjustments, while changes in appetite required creativity from the palace kitchen staff to prepare foods that appealed to Catherine during different phases of treatment. Catherine's fitness routine, always an important part of her life, had to be completely restructured during treatment. Working with physical therapists and fitness experts experienced in working with cancer patients, she developed gentle exercise programs that helped maintain her strength without overtaxing her system. These modified workouts became an important part of her emotional well-being as well as her physical health. The impact of Catherine's treatment on the royal family's public schedule was managed carefully to maintain continuity while acknowledging the reality of her situation. Other senior royals, including Princess Anne, the Earl and Countess of Wessex, and senior working royals from the extended family, took on additional engagements. This redistribution of duties demonstrated the collaborative nature of modern royal work and the institution's ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Catherine found unexpected sources of strength and inspiration during her treatment. Letters from cancer survivors around the world provided comfort and practical advice. Stories from other mothers facing similar challenges helped her feel less alone in balancing treatment with parenting responsibilities. Medical staff at the London clinic, many of whom worked with cancer patients daily, offered perspectives on resilience and hope that only comes from witnessing countless recovery journeys. The holiday season during Catherine's treatment took on special significance for the family. Christmas traditions that had always been important became even more precious, and Catherine was determined to maintain as much normalcy as possible for the children. The family scaled back their usual elaborate celebrations in favor of more intimate gatherings focused on being together rather than maintaining royal protocol. As Catherine progressed through her treatment schedule, she began to develop a deeper understanding of the cancer community and the unique challenges faced by patients and families dealing with serious illness. This experience would later influence her royal work in ways she couldn't yet imagine, but even during treatment, she began thinking about how her platform might be used to support others on similar journeys. The medical team monitoring Catherine's progress was encouraged by her response to treatment and her overall resilience throughout the process. Her positive attitude, strong support system, and excellent medical care were combining to create optimal conditions for recovery, giving everyone involved reason for cautious optimism as the treatment journey continued. By February, Catherine had completed approximately half of her treatment regimen, and the experience had fundamentally changed her perspective on life, motherhood, and her role as Princess of Wales. The physical challenges of chemotherapy had been significant, but the emotional and spiritual growth that accompanied her cancer journey surprised everyone, including Catherine herself. The most profound change was in how Catherine related to her children. Previously, like many busy parents juggling demanding careers, she had sometimes felt guilty about missing bedtime stories or school events due to royal obligations. Cancer treatment forced her to slow down and be present in ways that transformed her understanding of what truly mattered. Every ordinary moment with George, Charlotte, and Louis became precious and intentional. Catherine began incorporating the children into her healing process in age-appropriate ways. Charlotte became fascinated with nutrition and started planning healthy meals for her mother, researching foods that might help with recovery. George took on additional responsibilities around the house, developing a maturity that was both touching and concerning to his parents. Louis, with the pure acceptance of a young child, simply adjusted to his mother needing more rest and cuddles, becoming an unexpected source of emotional healing. The experience also deepened Catherine and William's marriage in unexpected ways. They had always been partners, but facing cancer together revealed new depths of commitment and understanding. William's steady presence during medical appointments, his practical support with household management, and his emotional availability during Catherine's most difficult days strengthened their bond immeasurably. Catherine's relationship with her extended family also evolved during this period. Her mother, Carol, became not just a source of practical support but also a confidant who understood Catherine's fears about motherhood and mortality in ways that others couldn't. The Middleton family's close-knit nature, sometimes criticized as being too involved in royal affairs, proved to be exactly what Catherine needed during her treatment. Midway through her treatment, Catherine made a decision that would later be seen as pivotal in her recovery journey. She decided to visit other cancer patients at the London clinic, initially just to express gratitude to the medical staff who were caring for her. These visits, conducted with absolute privacy and no media coverage, became a regular part of her treatment routine. Meeting other patients facing similar battles provided Catherine with perspective and purpose that medical treatment alone couldn't offer. She talked with elderly patients facing their diagnoses with remarkable grace, young mothers terrified about leaving their children, and teenagers grappling with illnesses that threatened their futures. These conversations were deeply moving and helped Catherine understand that her experience, while unique in its public nature, was also universal in its fundamental human challenges. The staff at the London clinic began to look forward to Catherine's visits with other patients. Her genuine empathy, lack of royal pretension during these interactions, and ability to connect with people from all backgrounds made her presence genuinely comforting to other patients. Catherine discovered that helping others cope with their fears and challenges actually strengthened her own resolve and healing. Catherine's medical team noticed improvements in her overall well-being that they attributed partly to these patient visits. Dr. Harrison observed that Catherine's mental health and treatment response seemed to improve during periods when she was actively supporting other patients. This observation would later influence how Catherine approached her royal work, understanding that service to others could be a form of personal healing. The physical side effects of treatment became more challenging as the regimen progressed, But Catherine developed coping strategies that surprised even her medical team. She practiced meditation and mindfulness techniques recommended by her counselor, finding peace in quiet moments that had previously been filled with royal obligations and busy family schedules. These practices helped her manage anxiety and nausea while providing emotional stability during uncertain times. Catherine also discovered unexpected creative outlets during her treatment. She began writing more extensively in her journal, not just documenting medical information but exploring her thoughts about life, mortality, and purpose. Some of these writings would later become the foundation for speeches and initiatives focused on cancer awareness and patient support. Photography, which had always been a personal interest, became therapeutic during Catherine's treatment. She documented her recovery journey through images, capturing moments of beauty and hope that sustained her during difficult days. Photos of spring flowers beginning to bloom in the palace gardens, candid shots of her children playing, and images of the medical staff who cared for her became a visual diary of resilience. The spring of Catherine's treatment year brought both physical improvement and emotional challenges. As her energy began to return and her medical team expressed optimism about her progress, Catherine faced the complex emotions that often accompany the end of active cancer treatment. The intensive medical attention and structured routine of treatment had provided a strange comfort, and the prospect of returning to normal life brought both relief and anxiety. Catherine's approach to discussing her cancer experience evolved throughout her treatment. Initially focused on providing basic medical updates, her communications became more personal and reflective as she processed the experience. She began talking about the lessons cancer had taught her about priorities, resilience, and the importance of being present for life's ordinary moments. The public's response to Catherine's journey remained overwhelmingly supportive, but she also faced criticism from some quarters about her use of private healthcare, her ability to maintain some royal duties during treatment, and decisions about what information to share publicly. Catherine and William discussed these criticisms thoughtfully, ultimately deciding that they would continue to be guided by what felt authentic and helpful rather than trying to satisfy all public opinions. Educational institutions around the world began studying Catherine's approach to communicating about cancer, noting how her openness had influenced public discourse about illness, privacy, and vulnerability. Communication experts praised her balance of transparency and dignity, while medical professionals credited her openness with encouraging increased cancer screening and awareness. Catherine's patronages related to health and wellness took on new meaning during her treatment. Organizations she had supported for years suddenly felt deeply personal rather than professionally obligatory. She began developing ideas for how her cancer experience might inform future initiatives, though she was careful not to make commitments while still focused on her own recovery. The family's approach to celebrating milestones changed significantly during Catherine's treatment. Birthdays, school achievements, and family traditions were marked with greater intentionality and appreciation. Catherine became more present for these moments, understanding that her recovery was not just about returning to health but about being fully engaged in the life she was fighting to preserve. As Catherine approached the final phase of her treatment, she began planning for what recovery and return to public life might look like. These plans involved careful consideration of how to balance her health needs with royal obligations, how to use her experience to benefit others facing similar challenges, and how to maintain the deeper appreciation for life and family that cancer had taught her. The medical team preparing for Catherine's transition from active treatment to recovery monitoring was cautiously optimistic about her prognosis. Her response to treatment had been excellent, her overall health remained strong, and her positive attitude and robust support system created ideal conditions for long-term recovery. However, they also understood that the emotional aspects of finishing treatment could be as challenging as the physical aspects of undergoing it. The day Catherine chose to return to the London clinic as a visitor rather than a patient marked a profound milestone in her cancer journey. It was early May, 6 months after completing her treatment, and her medical team had confirmed that she was responding excellently to recovery. This visit, however, was not about her own health but about honoring the medical staff who had cared for her and connecting with patients currently fighting battles she understood all too well. Catherine had planned this visit carefully, working with the hospital administration to ensure it would be meaningful rather than disruptive. She wanted to meet privately with the nurses, doctors, and support staff who had become like family during her treatment months. More importantly, she wanted to spend time with current patients, offering the kind of hope and understanding that only someone who had walked the same path could provide. The morning of the visit, Catherine chose her outfit with particular care. She wore a soft blue dress that had become her favorite during recovery, paired with a delicate scarf that had been a gift from a fellow cancer survivor she had met during treatment. Her appearance was healthy and radiant, but she was mindful not to seem so recovered that current patients might feel her experience was different from theirs. William accompanied Catherine to the hospital, just as he had during her treatment days. Their arrival was deliberately low-key, with minimal security presence and no formal protocol. Catherine had specifically requested that this visit feel personal and authentic rather than like a royal engagement. She wanted to connect with people as someone who had shared their experience, not as Princess of Wales fulfilling official duties. The first stop was the chemotherapy suite where Catherine had received her own treatment. Walking back into that space brought a flood of memories and emotions, but also a sense of gratitude that surprised her with its intensity. She spent time with each nurse who had cared for her, thanking them personally and hearing about how her openness about her diagnosis had affected other patients they treated. Catherine's conversations with current patients were deeply moving and utterly genuine. She sat with a young mother whose children were the same ages as George and Charlotte, sharing practical advice about explaining treatment to young children and maintaining family routines during cancer care. Her insights were specific and helpful, coming from lived experience rather than theoretical understanding. One particularly touching interaction occurred with an elderly gentleman who was receiving his final chemotherapy treatment. He had followed Catherine's journey through news reports and had found inspiration in her positive attitude despite the challenges. Catherine spent nearly 30 minutes with him, discussing not just cancer treatment but also his grandchildren, his career as a teacher, and his hopes for his post-treatment life. The pediatric ward visit was emotionally challenging but ultimately uplifting for Catherine. Meeting children facing cancer diagnoses brought back all her fears about her own children's well-being, but also highlighted the incredible resilience and hope that young patients and their families demonstrate daily. Catherine was particularly moved by the parents she met, understanding their fear and exhaustion in ways that her pre-cancer royal visits had never allowed. Throughout the visit, Catherine was accompanied by Dr. Harrison, who had led her medical team during treatment. The doctor observed Catherine's interactions with wonder, noting how the experience of being a patient had transformed Catherine's ability to provide genuine comfort and support. The professional distance that typically characterizes royal hospital visits was completely absent, replaced by authentic human connection. Catherine's conversation with the hospital's patient support staff revealed how significantly her public cancer journey had impacted other patients. The staff reported that many patients had referenced Catherine's openness about her diagnosis when discussing their own fears and treatment decisions. Her willingness to be vulnerable publicly had given other patients permission to be honest about their own struggles and to seek support when needed. The visit included time with medical researchers working on cancer treatment advances. Catherine's experience as a patient gave her insights into research priorities and patient needs that impressed the scientists. Her questions were informed and practical, focusing on quality of life during treatment and support for family members of cancer patients. These conversations planted seeds for future royal patronage work focused on cancer research and patient support. One unexpected aspect of the visit was Catherine's reunion with other patients she had met during her own treatment. Several people who had been receiving care at the same time had requested to see her during the visit. These reunions were joyful celebrations of shared survival and recovery, marked by tears, laughter, and mutual support that demonstrated the unique bonds formed between people who have faced life-threatening illness together. The hospital's social media team, with Catherine's permission, documented parts of the visit to share the positive impact of patient advocacy and support. The images and videos released showed Catherine's genuine engagement with patients and staff, her obvious health and happiness, and the healing power of sharing difficult experiences with others who understand. Catherine's emotional state during and after the visit surprised even her. She had expected the experience to be meaningful, but the depth of connection she felt with current patients and the profound gratitude she experienced toward her medical team exceeded her expectations. The visit reinforced her understanding that her cancer experience, while personally challenging, had given her a platform and perspective that could genuinely help others. The visit concluded with Catherine addressing a small gathering of medical staff, patients, and families. Her remarks were informal and heartfelt, focusing on gratitude, hope, and the importance of supporting one another through difficult times. She spoke about how the experience of being a patient had changed her understanding of healing, emphasizing that recovery involved not just physical health but emotional and spiritual growth as well. Media coverage of the hospital visit was extensive and overwhelmingly positive. News outlets around the world covered Catherine's return to the London clinic, focusing on her healthy appearance, her genuine connections with patients, and the inspiring nature of her advocacy for cancer awareness. The coverage highlighted how her personal experience had enhanced rather than diminished her effectiveness as a senior royal. The impact of Catherine's visit extended far beyond that single day. Hospital staff reported increased interest in patient support programs and volunteer opportunities. Cancer charities experienced surges in donations and volunteer applications. Most importantly, current cancer patients across the UK and beyond expressed feeling less alone in their battles, inspired by Catherine's demonstration that survival and thriving after cancer were possible. Catherine's approach to this visit established a new model for how senior royals might engage with causes that had touched their personal lives. Rather than maintaining the traditional distance between royal patron and charity work, Catherine demonstrated how personal experience could deepen and authenticate royal advocacy. Her visit proved that vulnerability and authenticity could enhance rather than compromise royal dignity. The day marked not just Catherine's successful recovery from cancer, but also her evolution into a royal figure whose personal experiences informed and strengthened her public service. The little girl who had once dreamed of being a princess had become a woman whose greatest royal achievement was showing millions of people that hope, healing, and happiness were possible even after facing life's greatest challenges. As Catherine left the London clinic that day, surrounded by the same medical team that had guided her through treatment, the circle of her cancer journey felt meaningfully complete. She had entered the hospital months earlier as a patient fighting for her health and her future. She left as an advocate, survivor, and source of hope for countless others facing similar battles. The transformation was profound, authentic, and inspiring to everyone who witnessed it. The visit represented everything Catherine had learned about the power of shared experience, authentic connection, and the healing that comes from helping others navigate their own difficult paths. It demonstrated that sometimes our greatest challenges become our most powerful tools for serving others, and that true royal duty might sometimes mean sharing our vulnerabilities rather than maintaining our distance. Catherine drove home that evening knowing that her cancer experience, while never something she would have chosen, had given her gifts of perspective, empathy, and purpose that would guide her royal work for years to come. The future queen had discovered that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from being invulnerable, but from transforming personal pain into public service and hope for others facing their own battles.